is Camille with Rig on Wheels. I am the owner and CEO over here at Rig on Wheels, but this is the Rig on Wheels show featuring MVT, and we got the VP Pearson in the house. So introduce yourself,
It,
Pearson.
it's good to be here. I'm not in the country at this moment, but always have time to do this every Tuesday, and so excited to be on with you.
Yes, we do this every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, just to kind of let everybody know that. So it's the first of its kind. It is a live recruiting show, so drivers are able to ask questions live. We're able to answer questions live and go through a lot of different things. Okay, so we want to just kind of jump right into it right away. And let's talk about some industry news and what's been happening. I want to jump into yellow. Talk about yellow freight a little bit. What's your thoughts there, Pearson?
Well, there's a lot going on in the industry at this moment now. Of course, Yellow took about a $700 million government-backed loan about 3 years ago. They've paid off about $230 of that. So there's definitely a stake for people both in and out of the industry at this moment. It's been interesting. There's been a back and forth with the Teamsters Union. They seem to have trouble coming to an agreement. Some would argue that the company's got some issues that are above and beyond just the negotiations with the Teamsters. But if they don't come to an agreement here pretty soon, it could be the end of a fairly large player in our industry that would have a ripple effect that probably your most astute economist wouldn't really know. But we'll find out as we cross that bridge.
It's going to be very detrimental. I mean, they had a big loss before the pandemic, and then they had to bail out, which most did. But I guess it didn't help as much because they're still losing, and a strike with the Teamsters would end them. So they're saying that themselves. So that's pretty sad. And you're seeing a lot of stuff all on social media where they're talking about the pension and everything. So it's pretty heartbreaking when you see
Yeah.
drivers like that. But when it comes to UPS, right before about 2 hours ago, they finally came to an agreement. 5-year contract signed off on, so we don't have to worry about that strike. So everybody will be able to get all of their retail and everything about that. What's your thoughts on that, if anything?
Yeah, I'm excited on the UPS front. We don't realize a business with UPS, how they impact our day-to-day lives, from the businesses sending out packages, in particular small business owners, as well as just in our day-to-day interactions, both personal and professionally. Yellow's a bit of a different story, but with UPS, I'm glad to see that come to fruition. Lord knows they have a number of drivers I'd sure like to have a conversation with, but on the flip side, I don't want any of those folks to be in more turmoil than they need to be. And so I'm excited to see that. And in particular, here over the last couple of weeks, I think it became apparent the impact they'd have on the small business community that relies on them. It's not your huge shippers like Walmart or Amazon, but it's your mom and pops that maybe have an olive farm in California, or lobster fishermen up in Massachusetts needing to ship a few lobsters. It would have a pretty big ripple effect on the overall economy. And so for at least the next 5 years, we can take a breath easy on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though, of course, we would definitely want to speak to the drivers, but just to think about, because I have family members that work at UPS, I have family members that retired from UPS. So to just kind of think about what that would mean for them and their families. So I just definitely hope, we know that they're taken care of. But going back to Yellow, hopefully they'll be able to be taken care of, because those guys and gals have been definitely there for a long time. So to feel that their pension or anything, their pay, their job, their livelihood is gone is a bit beyond me. Then to talk about the economy is going to be
Yeah,
a very bad triple down effect.
yeah. I think it's important to know, and we spoke about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago and again last week. We are all in competition with each other, both in terms of for freight, for drivers, for opportunities. With that said, you don't wish ill will on anybody else, understanding that in the world of business, there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, but you definitely cheer for there to be more winners than losers. And so it's that there's a German term called Freudenscheiden, and I'm probably butchering it, but it essentially means finding pleasure in the misfortune of others. You don't want to be that type of person. And so as much as we want to win in this crazy little business we call trucking, you also don't want to see the worst happen to people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, I know that I wanted to talk about tips a little bit later, but how do you feel that a driver could not necessarily at yellow or anything like that, just trucking overall, because freight goes up and down. It's the biggest thing that's constant in our industry is everything is up and down and consistently moving. How can they protect themselves? How can they protect themselves? How can they protect their family?
Yeah, I suggest any driver be smart beyond just the truck. I suggest once a week checking out Transport Topics, which is an industry publication that covers our trucking industry exclusively. Setting a Google page alert so that you're getting trucking news. The more you can be educated and talk the business behind the business, the better off you're going to be because you can adjust to it. The second part of that comes into making sound financial decisions of when you purchase a house, when you purchase a car, when you say, hey, we're going to take a cruise. So as an example, we get into last year where you saw spot market rates for dry van around $2.50. Everybody wanted to get a truck. Everybody wanted to load it up with chrome. Everybody wanted to take that vacation. We are not in that environment right now. So this is not the time to take an extra week off. This is not the time to go on that cruise. You're going to have natural expenses you have in life. Someone's going to graduate. You'll have a medical bill. We all face those challenges. But in terms of discretionary income, if you're a driver, this is the time you want to be efficient. Be it you be an owner operator or a company driver, you want to make sure the business you operate on the road is as tight as it can be. One less stop at the truck stop to get a meal, as an example. Investing in a refrigerator that's going to hold the food that you need on the road. And again, watching out for those large scale purchases. There's a lot of good money in trucking. In fact, as a driver, there's good money in trucking even during the worst of times, but you have to be financially astute. You have to watch that you're watching your money closely and not making financial decisions that you're paying for years later.
I would definitely agree with that. And it's funny that you said setting a Google alert. So, and I wrote that down because we set Google alerts just to make sure I don't miss anything that's hitting the World Wide Web. So I am going to put that out on social media and YouTube and everything, how to set the Google alert, because everybody doesn't know how to do that, just so the drivers will be able to know that. So when you say not so much in the truck stops, so I know that has to do with money financially too, but it also has to do with health. Then that will allow them not to have to take off time. It's one thing to take off time because of vacation and things like that. Something happened at home and needing time. But if you have to take off time because of your health, that affects your money. And this is not the time to do that. Not just in trucking, just across the board with everybody. So
Yep.
definitely. Okay. So I wanted to dive into that. Okay, so what we're going to do is do a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. So, Robert, I want to welcome back everybody. Sorry about that. I wanted to dive into a few tips for the drivers. And I have some things that I wanted to say, but did you have any, because I don't want to start off and just jump right in to whatever I wanted to say. What did you have? Did you have anything for the good people today?
Yeah, I'll go back to what we talked about in the last segment. Try to educate you on the industry above and beyond your view from inside the truck. Try to keep up to date on what's going on around you. I would definitely say financial awareness and understanding and owning your financial stability becomes really important. And I think you touched a key piece of this when it comes to health. Take care of yourself mentally and physically. Um, you are more than just a steering wheel holder. You are a professional, and part of that professionalism is being mentally astute and being alert and being able to do your job with a clear head. So I would definitely say you focus on information, focus on finances, and focus on your overall well-being, and you'll be able to do amazing things beyond those three objectives.
Perfect, perfect. What I wanted to jump into, because we've had a lot of drivers and I've been listening to calls and everything with the recruiters, and I'm noticing a lot of job hopping. And definitely, you want to switch jobs when you need to switch jobs. You want to switch jobs when you want to switch jobs. But you don't want to switch jobs just because your dispatcher had an attitude today. Or it's too much traffic on this route going from Georgia to North Carolina today. And you just don't want to deal with that anymore. Or if you were told that you normally don't have to go into New York, and then this week you had to go into New York, even though next week your plan is not having to. What that means is during times where freight is not always the best, and companies have to look at their bottom line, they have to look at what makes sense. If you are a driver that jumps around, you become a driver that doesn't make sense. So just like Pearson is saying, look at your own financials, make it make sense, understand that the companies do that as well. So I had a conversation with a driver yesterday about that. And we were talking, I was like, we want to help you, but why are you leaving this company? And he really didn't have a sound reason. So if we had to put him with another company, he would have left that company within a month because it was just something that happened that particular day. There's a difference between the straw that broke the camel back, and everybody knows I mess up saying, so let's hopefully I did that right. So there's a difference between the straw that broke the camel back and, oh, somebody just pissed me off today. So taking and not being as emotional so you can make a solid decision about yourself, your family. That's the reason, one of the reasons why we wanted to do a live recruitment show. Yes, you will be able to see the recording later. Yes, you will be able to see clips everywhere, but a live, so you'll be able to ask questions so you can make sound decisions for your family. So I tend to say that. We say that a lot, but this year I feel like a broken record where I'm saying it over and over again because I don't want anybody making bad decisions, and then you come March 2024 and we aren't able to help them because they switched so many times in the last 12 months. What do you see?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Look, the driver that switches jobs, that's going to cost them $3,000 to $5,000. So you need to ask yourself when you've had a rough day with your dispatcher, when you haven't gotten the load that you wanted, is quitting this job worth $3,000 to $5,000 for me? There's some situations it is, and it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and there's multiple things and events that lead up to that moment. With that said, your dispatcher and you having a rough day, probably not that moment. A customer who had 2 hours of extra wait time, I'm not saying you should dismiss it, but probably not that moment. It is a huge commitment when you do that. And so for the driver that has 6 to 8 jobs in the last 3 years, that costs up to $3,000 to $5,000. So let's say that you've had 6 different jobs in the last 3 years. So we won't go with the extreme. multiply 6 by 4, that's $24,000 over the last 3 years in lost wages by doing that job. Like I said, when it's time to leave, you have to watch out for you, and your real true family at home is your team. You have to make a financial decision that's right for that family, but it's worth asking the question: is picking up that phone and deciding I'm going to quit today worth $3,000 to $5,000? And I would think that when you take that emotion out of it and look at it strictly from a fiduciary interest, you'll find that it's not necessarily the course of action.
And I love how you're talking directly to the driver and about the driver. And then I want to be honest when it comes to the companies as well, right? So
Yep.
I know that there's a driver shortage, and we all know and we have our ideas of the reasons why. And it's been a driver shortage for a while, but at the end of the day, a shortage is a shortage. But I'm not one, and I never will be one to say it's all the company's fault, nor is all the driver's fault. Never will do that because I know the differences. But when you have a driver that job hops so much, one of the reasons why we can't process you through some of the companies is because it will take the company too many man hours to get your verifications back. That in turn can cost the company money, and in turn might get you the wrong wage. So that
Yep.
goes even more than when Pearson is saying that 3 to 5 thousand is in your pocket. It can cost you because what if a company doesn't come back with your verification ever? Things like that. And speaking of that, because we have so many companies that are folding right now, and I'm not talking about your megas and your mid-size, right? So you have so many companies that are folding right now. If they haven't reported to DAC and all of that, it's hard to get the verifications. It's very hard to get verifications. You have different companies that do different things to be able to get them. But with saying that, what are some of the things that MVT will do to help get verifications for
Yeah,
drivers?
we get fairly creative at times. Not everything fits in a perfect bucket in terms of calling a carrier and them saying, yeah, this individual works from this date to this date. We've used everything from the reports, PSP reports as an example, showing that you've had stops and clean inspections. At times, we've used paycheck stubs in cooperation with supporting evidence from your previous coworkers. We've gotten fairly creative on it. Now, a lot of this is regulated and controlled at the DOT or FMCSA level. And so we always look at it on a case-by-case basis, and we want to help somebody out. But it's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people focus on. When I go to a carrier, how likely are they going to be able to verify my employment? And that's where the financial well-being of a trucking company matters. Because if you stay there or you don't stay there, will they be around to give you the documentation that you need in order to progress in your career? It is one of the things when you go to a carrier that goes out of business, people think of the immediate side effect of that, of the company closing. It
Right.
impacts the drivers for a much longer period of time, up to 5 to 7 years when a carrier goes out of business that they were at. It impacts their career ability. There's many companies who pay ranges are determined based off of verifiable experience. And so it's kind of one of those interesting things of why it matters when you reach out and you do look at that next carrier. You want that carrier to be profitable because they need to be around to support you even after you're gone.
So, what are some of the red flags that you would say for a driver not to go to a carrier? I know
Yes.
I would say, but what are the ones that you would say?
So not only do you want to look at the equipment to make sure it's nice equipment because you're going to operate it, when carriers start having trouble maintaining their equipment, that's not a good sign. That is a sign that there may be financial issues. When you deal with internal turnover a lot. So as an example, if you know somebody at a carrier and their fleet manager seems to change every couple of weeks where they have somebody new come on board because the last guy quit, that's not a good sign. That means there's possible internal strife there that you need to be concerned of. Doesn't necessarily mean financial, but it's a red flag that you should probably check off one of your boxes being a concern. When you see routine news stories about them having financing issues, again, being educated about what's handled on the news threads with Google News Alert or through Transport Topic, that's something to be concerned about. The other part of this, and this is why we focus heavily on driver retention, is driver retention really is an indication if the company's stable. So as an example, if you have a carrier and the recruiter tells you we have real high turnover, and recruiters will say that because they notice that that's something that is a bigger deal than, hey, I'm going to pay you 1 less cent per mile. With that said, there's always turnover naturally in this industry, but companies that lose focus of turnover probably also have some financial things, because recruiting truck drivers over and over and over again is not cheap.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. And some of the red flags that I can think of, and some could be if I have someone talking about they want to go to a smaller carrier, which I think is great, but some things you need to look at. If they can't answer direct questions. So if somebody says, "Oh, we're going to pay you a percentage of the load," what does that look like? Give you an example, not just the percentage of what it costs. No, are we talking about the percentage of the growth, or are we talking about the percentage of their settlement? And then what is the run? You want to know, have they ever done this run before? And I know that sounds a little silly, but you can't imagine the amount of carriers that are looking for drivers that have never done this run, and they don't know anybody else that has done this run, but they need a driver to do it. So they don't know what to expect. So you want to know an average, not just 25%, 30% of the load. You want to know, what does that mean on average? Because you need to know, for an example, when Pearson says, "Oh, on average this run is 1740 a week or 1500 a week," you need that another carrier to be able to say the same thing. I'm going to echo the same thing that Pearson said: equipment. If the equipment is hot garbage, first of all, you're putting your CDL on the line. That's going to come up on a PSP reports. It's bad for you. We know it's bad for the trucking company, but it's bad for you as a driver. So making sure you know that about poor equipment. And then poor communication. If you're calling the person, you get their voicemail, make sure you leave a voicemail. But they're not calling you back, or they're not attempting to text or email or something back. A lot of times they're not doing business, because when you do business, you do business. People are busy throughout the day. However, the communication. Another thing, when we're looking at your smaller carriers, making sure you Google the carrier, Google them. That's important. See what it is that you see. Do you see them on Safer? That'll help a lot, because during the pandemic, this happened a lot in 2020, when the companies were closing, or accounts, and we needed to get them on with other companies. Drivers were calling, they needed jobs. Well, they come to find out they were working for a company, but they weren't DOT. So a lot of things like that, just quick Googles, getting on Safer, make sure that they're authorized to carry and move and haul. So just doing your homework better. So those are definitely my tips, because I'm starting to hear that a lot more frequently, and it echoing the same thing from 2020, and I know it's because of the loss of DOTs now, DOT numbers and carriers.
I would also say, and you bring up an interesting point with a small carrier, is we are normally adverse to change. We don't like to see small become big. But in the world of business, you want to go to a carrier that is growing. So I will say, anybody, if you go to a carrier that has less than 100 trucks, there's a lot of advantages. Those companies often can relate to you a lot better. There's fewer people to manage. But one of the things you should look at is that company growing? And I'll give you an example. I know a fleet that 2 years ago was at 65 trucks, and now there are 80 trucks. that is a good sign. That is a sign that it's a healthy company, that it's a robust company, seeing consistent growth. And so if you go to a small carrier, I'm not opposed to that, especially if you can have a better relationship with said carrier. But one of the things you want to ask is, hey, what was your truck count 2 years ago? What's your truck count today? If a business is not growing, it is dying just because of inflation alone.
That is a great, that is the best point right there. I didn't even think of that. I'm going to write that down. I'm stealing that, Pearson, and it's now mine. Because that is, that's it. That's the whole thing. You took out this segment. That is wonderful. So we are definitely going to go ahead and go to our commercial and be right back. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Thanks everybody for joining us. So I know our producer Kayla just let me know that it's quite a few questions. So I want to jump into that. She said they were coming in the last segment, but I wanted to just do a full segment of them. So Kayla, shoot or not
Hey,
shoot. Talk.
Camille. So, our first question is, what should a small carrier be doing right now in this slow economy?
I think I'm gonna jump into that, and I think Pearson kind of put a little bit of spin. It's similar to the same thing with the truck drivers. Watch your spending, big time. Don't be smart about your routes. So I know everybody wants to do OTR. So I hear that with carriers all the time. I say, okay, so what's the route? Oh, I'm gonna do OTR. What does that mean? What is your baseline number? Because if you're going to do OTR, when you say OTR, is it 3 states, 5 states, or all lower 48? If you're in the Northeast and you coming from Georgia and going all the way Northeast, now you're going to spend all of that diesel. So you have to make it make sense. What route are you on? What dedicated account or what general freight are you carrying in order to do that? If you are doing I-95, that's fine, but how much of the Western are you going to do for it to make sense? So knowing what's your burn number, okay? That's what I would definitely make sure. And then I'm all about protecting the drivers. If you have drivers, make sure you have a month work worth of their income put to the side. So when your truck breaks down and it's in the shop for 3 days, you can still give them some money so then they don't jump ship because everybody has bills. But if you are owner operator that you drive yourself, that is great. But just watch your unnecessary spending. And when you say OTR, because that's great and I want you to go OTR, but make it make sense when it comes to this diesel prices. Pearson, did you have something to say about that question?
Yeah, customer service. If you have direct customers, brokerage serves a role with any company of any shape and size. But if you have direct customers, you have companies both your size as well as larger chasing after those shippers right now at this moment. Your value proposition to that customer is their customer service, on time delivery. Focus on the customer right now. Keep your direct customers happy and content. You most likely will not be the cheapest option, but your ability to have a clear-cut value proposition based off of service becomes really pivotal right now. The other part of that is it gets into the driver. Have a very open and honest discussion and dialogue with your drivers about, hey, we got to focus on customer service right now. You are my value proposition. Together, we need to hold on to our direct accounts. I can't emphasize it enough. You have more enemies outside the industry trying to grab your freight at this moment, trying to save a shipper 2-3 cents a mile. Your ability to show that you can offer a high standard of customer service benefits you as well as your drivers.
Perfect. Thanks. Kayla, what's your next one? Let's just dive into all the questions.
Next question, does MVT have both inward and outward facing cameras?
We do. We have outward facing cameras and we have inward facing cameras. The inward facing cameras, and I'll go ahead and get past the stigma around it, it's simply alerted when there's movement. So I promise you, we have 1,600 trucks at this moment. We do not have a strange guy in some closet somewhere watching you drive your truck or go sleep in the sleeper berth. It literally is if there's a hard break, if there's an accident, if there's some kind of incident, a motion will spot that inward facing action. It is not the big brother that I believe some people make it out to be, but it will save you when you are professional and you would do what you need to behind the wheel of the truck. It has gotten us as well as our drivers out of trouble when we were proven not to be at fault.
Love it. I don't have anything to say about that question because you said it all. Because one of the objections, you kind of, the stigma to it, you did it. So Kayla, what's the next one?
Yes, the next one, what is the complete turnaround time from application to hire if everything's complete and good?
Yeah, so it varies by company, but specific to MVT, when I get a full application, I can get an approval as quickly as 2 to 3 hours within the same business day. And that applies to about 80 to 85% of candidates. There's always some extenuating circumstances, and it gets into the question that Camille asked specifically on, hey, how can you get creative in terms of verifying somebody's employment? And we do get creative. It may take a couple extra days for us to do that process, but for a good driver, 2 to 3 days is not a heartburn for us. Generally speaking, if I get a full application, I get a copy of your CDL front and back, and all the other documentation your recruiter is going to ask for, normally what holds us up is getting somebody's background reports back from the reporting agencies.
And so I kind of want to piggyback on that one. I got that saying right. I just want to put that out there that I got that particular saying right. So with the full app, just like Pearson said, it's going to be the CDL med card, the signature, because sometimes that doesn't always happen, but also the conversation with us as the third-party recruiter, and then the internal recruiter, and then the full communication. So we might have a full application, and we will submit it in, but if we can't get you back on the phone, if Ramirez can't get you on the telephone, then it's hard for us to get everything wrapped in the bow. So then the 2 to 3 hour turnaround can happen. So I want to reiterate that again. A full application is not just the paperwork, but it's the communication with it. So it's going to be the application, the signature, your fancy John Hancock, your front and back of your CDL, your med card, and the continuous communication that you have with us as your third party, and then your internal recruiter at MVT. For us, it's going to be Robert Ramirez. Not that we have favorites, we're just going to say we love him. That's it.
I will also say though, so as quickly as we can get you a yes, as we've been talking about the past couple of weeks here, take the time to have an extended conversation with your recruiter. As much as we want to hurry and become coworkers together, take the time to talk to your recruiter. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them what matters to you most, what you're trying to avoid. Slow down the process on your end. Get us the information that we need so we can give you that yes as quickly as possible. but you don't necessarily want to clock watch and skip over the things that matter most to you. Take the time to have a bit of a 5-minute or 10-minute conversation above and beyond. The end result becomes really important in that scenario.
My favorite question to a follow up with that I always ask a driver, and I want you all to think about this: why are you leaving your current company now, or why did you leave the last company? That right there, that'll open up a lot of conversation for all of us. Okay, so perfect. Kayla, did you have another one to segue with that, or did you want to go to commercial?
I don't have any more at this time. We can go ahead and go on a commercial break.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so it's either my drivers are psychic or they're the best drivers. I just want to say. But we sent out texts in order for the drivers to be able to be on here live. So Patrice Camille just let me know that somebody did say something. It was regarding what we're about to talk about now. So it's the Vision 400. And I want Pearson to go into it, and he's going to actually answer the question immediately, is what Pearson is going to do. So, Pearson, can you talk about Division 400?
Yep, let's talk about Division 400. It's one of my favorites. Division 400, we definitely need capacity in terms of drivers in the Nashville market. We have a lot of long-term customers out of that particular market. We also will do what's called T-calling, where we'll take a load from a different part of the country, drop the load there in the yard there in Nashville, and take it on up to the Northeast. Our version of the Northeast is not New York City. You will not see an MVT truck going through Manhattan anytime in the near future. Our version of the Northeast is places like Ithaca or Binghamton, New York, potentially the greater Philadelphia area or middle of Pennsylvania. It's a position that pays anywhere between $90,000 to $95,000 a year. There's also benefits where there's a productivity and safety bonus for this division. So as an example, you might get, if you get 10,000 miles in a week, which if you're available, a month, and if you're available for the full month, you're going to get 10,000 miles. You'll get an extra 2 cents on your base pay. If you hit 12,000 miles, you get an extra 5 cents on your pay, retroactively in the entire month. That is contingent on you not having any tickets or accidents or any late deliveries over the course of that month. The nice thing with it being monthly is, let's say something did happen and you had one late delivery, it happened, it didn't work out as it needed to be. The very next month, you're right back on the clock running for that bonus. So that's a nice caveat to that type of bonus on monthly. We're not dangling a carrot out there where you have to wait 12 months to see a bonus from your work. Your dispatcher, there's a couple of folks on Division 400, they're fleet managers. They've been with these customers going on a couple decades at this point. So these are experienced dispatchers that understand these unique customers, these needs. Again, like any of our divisions, it's no touch. We're not paying you to be a lumper. You don't need to go out and get any type of exotic endorsement. A lot of drop and hook on these particular loads. And with you being based out of Nashville, which is the ideal location for Division 400, you're going to do orientation in the same place that you live, right there in Nashville. It's where orientation will be. It's where your truck's waiting for you. So we can make the process as seamless as possible.
Perfect, perfect. Kayla, did you have a question for us? Because I know you just message saying you had a question.
Yes,
Somebody.
I do. Someone just asked, are there any bonuses for safety, fuel, sign-on, performance, referrals, things like that?
Yep. Uh, I will first start with this. Sign-on bonuses are trash, and don't believe in them, because if you do your job, I should be paying you the money that you earn and not putting it in some kind of fancy package. So no sign-on bonus, because I'm just going to pay you straight up the money for doing your work. The second piece of that, though, is there's definitely a safety and productivity bonus. Again, that's at 10,000 miles for the week. We'll retroactively add 2 cents a mile to all of your miles. And if you'd hit 12,000 miles in the week, which basically requires you to work when your time is done at home, you're going to get an extra 5 cents per mile instead on all those miles retroactively. Any question on how I feel about sign-on bonuses?
No, and I know another company that feels the same way, and you're kind of right, because I'm not gonna say you're kind of right, but what I will say is when sign-on bonuses are in the beginning, then during the course of your tenure there, then your pay is less. Versus you just give it to them as they're working, and then you're pay per performance, safety, showing up, and things like that. Anything as far as for orientation or no? After orientation, any pay other than orientation pay?
Yeah, look, if you get with Camille today or her team today, get an application filled out, we get you approved. Come join us within 2 weeks of that approval, and your orientation pay is $500. It's a 2.5-day orientation, and that $500 is literally paid out on your first paycheck after your first dispatch.
I have a question. So when they do
Yes,
a
ma'am.
are they going out by themselves, or do they need a mentor to kind of show them the ropes?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's a case-by-case basis depending on your comfort level. And what I mean by that is normally you're able to go out on your own. However, we have some drivers, as an example, that don't do too well with in-cab communication. They need a little extra time. We'll provide that. We have some that have some difficulty understanding certain things that we do with customers, certain runs. So we do work flexible on that end. And so it's a case-by-case basis as far as what's needed on that end. There's no shame in asking for help, and I will point that to any driver. If you're an experienced driver, a lot of times drivers don't necessarily want to ask for help. They're afraid they may look weak, they may look less than. That is not the case. We want to provide support, because you being successful, in particular in those first delicate weeks of your employment, becomes really important to us. We much rather help you in the first couple of weeks and have you with us still 5, 10 years down the road than have you feeling like you've left the terminal and have no clue what the heck's going on.
But I want to be clear, it's not mandatory that they go out with someone. Okay.
Correct.
Good, because that is perfect. So for all the drivers that don't feel that they need the help, and it could be not help driving, it could be a particular route they're not familiar with or anything. It's not mandatory. So that is definitely good to know and to clear up. Caleb, what was your next question that you had? Or was it related to this?
We also had a question for how much per mile, what type are ELD?
Okay. We use Platform Science is what the in-cab system is called. It's fairly user-friendly, works very well on that end. The pay is up to 60 cents a mile, plus we have the bonuses on top of that. That really depends on the amount of information that we're able to verify. But with 2 years of experience, you're up to 60 cents a mile.
And that kind of goes back to what I was saying when we were talking about a lot of jobs. So if you are a driver that has a lot of experience, but you've jumped around so much and nobody can get your experience, then that's when the cent per mile issue comes into play. And not just with MBT, I just want to point that out. We recruit for quite a few different companies, and that's when it happens, because it's all based on verified experience.
Yep.
Okay, so enough about 400, even though I like Nashville and everything. Let's talk about 110, because Ramirez really wanted to focus on 110. So let's talk about 110.
Yeah. Really nice division. Goes a lot along I-40, I-20 on the southern part of the U.S. Occasionally we'll go up to Colorado. It's a great option for both solo drivers as well as pre-made teams. Have a lot of family members that team on that particular division. A lot of father, sons, husband, wives that you'll see on that particular division. Generally speaking, most of the folks in that range are going to be in the $1,600 to $1,800 range. Good length of haul. Most of our length of hauls are shorter because we're hitting key points in that particular division. Your average length of hauls going to be about 1,400 miles. So you're getting to stretch your legs a little bit on this division. You'll see a lot of Tennessee and the Carolinas. You'll go as far west as California, but it's an attractive division. In particular, tends to be popular for us out of El Paso, Albuquerque, and the DFW marketplace. DFW has been very popular with Division 110. As we spoke of last week, we talked about Division 329. The second most popular division in DFW would be Division 110.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so and then I want to make sure I didn't miss it. Division 400, how much? I don't want to say it, but how much weekly?
Generally, I can annualize it for you at about $90,000 to $95,000 a week. So you're going to see that at generally around 1,600 to 1,700 a year. You're going to see that around 1,600 to 1,700 on a weekly basis. Sorry about that, Camille. English is difficult.
Because I was about to say, sign me up yesterday.
Absolutely, I got into the wrong career.
Right, you don't want me driving a truck. That is for sure. You want everybody safe. Okay, and then Ramirez said 150. We got your brain working today. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah, 150 is an interesting division for us. The key element of that and what drivers seem to like is, in particular, the running area. You're going to run in a lot of South Central and Southeast U.S. We're always looking for drivers on Division 150, in particular out of the DFW market. Houston is a very popular spot for us on Division 150. You're going to see South Central. You're not going to really go as far north as maybe Southern Oklahoma, but primarily the DFW area. You're going to go to the Southeast. You'll see places like Nashville, a little bit of Atlanta, the Carolinas in particular around Charlotte, and you're going to come back towards your home area out of Texas. Some of the easiest running lanes in the country. You're not having to get into any of the climates that's going to get bad winter weather during that time of the year. You're not having to contend with mountains. You're going to enjoy the scenery that you see, but you're going to have to deal with a lot less people and a lot less topography, if you will.
Okay, they'll be able to see the Carolinas, my favorite state, North Carolina. Okay, perfect.
It's a beauty.
Yes. All right. So what I want to do is go to another commercial, and then we're going to talk about my favorite topic, and that's the car giveaway. So definitely, let's go to another commercial, Kayla.
Mi nombre es Carlos Vázquez, tengo trabajando 3 años aproximadamente y somos B1 y andamos en territorio Estados Unidos. Lo que me gusta de MBT es que tiene buenos viajes, buenos camiones y muy buenas millas. Mi comunicación con el despacho es muy buena y todo eso, y siempre están a la orden del día. ¿Qué pienso del equipo de los camiones? Pues que están muy bien y les dan sus mantenimientos, sus PO y todo lo demás, alineación y balanceo, todo, cambio de llantas y excelente servicio. La compañía cada trimestre regala un auto para sus operadores. Me motiva pues a crecer más como persona y pues, para dar el 100, como dicen, para la compañía.
Welcome back, and we get to talk about my favorite part, this car giveaway. So let's jump into it. You must know this by heart because this is my favorite part, right, Pearson? So
absolutely
about it.
So we are real big on fuel economy. Again, as we've discussed previously, we average about 9.5 miles a gallon in an industry where we average about 6.5 miles a gallon. It is a key difference maker for us at MVT. There's a lot of things we can do to try and save money and be effectively efficient with MVT. Instead of focusing on driver pay, instead of skimping on equipment, we focus on fuel economy and try to squeeze the absolute most out of it. With that said, our drivers are an integral part of that. In fact, they're probably the biggest part of that. Driver behaviors on the road are where we get our best fuel economy from. And it's a competitive thing amongst our active drivers at this moment as they want to be in line for the car giveaway, because whoever has the best fuel economy in a given quarter is getting a brand new car. We did a Nissan Sonata this last quarter, beautiful vehicle, had less than 10 miles on it. We do one every quarter. It's a nice car. We assist you in terms of getting the licensing and the steps of the process, because there's always complexities with Uncle Sam. We make sure to work with you on that to make sure that's taken care of, and you have a brand new car. So while you're out on the road, it could be your weekend car for when you're at home. It could be your spouse's gift for the lifestyle of you being on the road. They get to see the fruits of your labor right off the bat with their brand new car. It could be a gift for one of your kids in their first vehicle. What you do with it, completely up to you, but we'll give away a car every single quarter. Above and beyond the car, I always like to point out that the best fuel economy for the year, though, gets $25,000 cold hard cash. At the end of the day, then you get to pick which car you want to get with that money.
I love it. I love it. As you were talking about who gets the car, I was just imagining, okay, I'm the wife at home, I get it. Okay, I can give it to Patrice Camille. I was just thinking about all of that good stuff. So thanks for sharing that. So I kind of want to wrap up everything. If you are interested in our services, you're looking for another job, you want to get and start working for MVT or any other company, definitely give us a call at 281 968 3100, 281 968 3100. And we'll definitely be able to help you. If you are on YouTube, you'll have the links in the bio, or you can go directly to the website for the application. Any closing remarks, Pearson?
Appreciate our audience listening in. A really good Q&A today. Get creative with your questions, and we'll get creative with our answers here. So anything that you'd like to know specific to the industry, MVT, what you guys do with Rig on Wheels, happy to have that conversation. So really appreciate the Q&A today. And as always, Camille, it's been fun.
Yes, it has. See you guys next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Bye-bye.